You know what else is true? No matter what Martha Stewart says, there is no perfect Thanksgiving dinner.
That's true.
If anyone tells you different, one of three things is going on. They are lying, they're delusional, or they are absent from said family gathering. Now, I was born on Thanksgiving, and right off the bat, I ruined that dinner for that day. Many of us born in the latter part of November, we have those birthdays that fall on Thanksgiving, but it's a different day every year, so on average, it only lands about every 7 years, and when you throw in leap year, it gets more complicated. I think I've only had about 9 birthdays on Thanksgiving so far in my life. Thanksgiving was always at our house when I was growing up.
There we go.
And I'm not sure why, because my mother was a terrible cook with desensitized taste buds. Her cooking seemed to, I don't know, demonstrate a passive-aggressive, unconscious desire to poison her family and clog her arteries. She fried everything. Every single day of my father's life, she would get out that cast iron skillet, fry up 2 pieces of bacon, and then crack 2 eggs in that bacon grease. She'd take that spatula and kind of, get that grease over the top of the eggs to cook them. And then any grease remaining, she would carefully pour into the Maxwell House, good to the very last drop, coffee can that would be sitting on the counter next to the stove. And then that grease would be used later to fry up whatever was for dinner, be it hamburger meat or chicken or pork chops, vegetables, or even questionable leftovers. They'd be fried up and added to the meal. But Thanksgiving was a time for special foods. And there was always the molded Jell-O salad. Gelatin, my friends, is a protein produced from extracting collagen from boiled bones, connective tissue, and intestines of animals. And of course, my mother would like this. She loved Jell-O. She would every year make her green molded salad, not to be confused with the green moldy leftovers waiting in the refrigerator to be fried. No, she would proudly unmold that salad that had strange things suspended in it, like green beans and corn and things that just did not belong in Jell-O. My sister and I called them UFOs, unidentified food objects. In the 1960s, the makers of Jell-O introduced 4 new flavors: celery, Italian seasoning, well, no, it was Italian dressing, seasoned tomato, and mixed vegetable. And the bizarre flavors did not last very long, but just long enough for my mother to try them. She was drawn to strange recipes. One year she found in Life magazine a recipe that called for lime Jell-O, tuna fish, chopped onions and chopped celery, mayonnaise, cottage cheese, and thinly sliced radishes. In the 1950s, Campbell's Soup Company introduced a new recipe just in time for Thanksgiving: green bean bake. It became an instant hit and was a staple in households across the USA during the holidays. And my mother loved it. It was so easy. You would just take 1 can of Campbell's Cream of Mushroom Soup, half a cup of milk, 2 cans of green beans, and 3/4 cups of crispy French fried onions. Whoosh them all together, put them in a casserole dish, bake at 350 for 30 minutes or until it was hot and bubbling. Pull it back out, sprinkle some more of those crispy French fried onions on the top. Bake for another 5 minutes until it was golden brown. And I know that many people love this casserole. Now, my mother would plan dinner to be served around 3 o'clock. She would get up before the crack of dawn and start cooking, and everything would be ready by noon. And there those green beans would be baking for another 3 hours in their casserole until they were limp and gray, sadly swimming in their soupy mix next to chewy flecks of what was once crispy French fried potato onion rings. Oh, her mashed potatoes. She would peel those potatoes, leaving the black spots in them. Throw those in the pot and boil them until not quite tender. Drain the water and then add milk, not measured, just estimated. And then she would madly mash them into lumpy, bumpy texture. And then those would be set aside to be served later cold.
Oh, nice.
And then, of course, you have to have gravy for Thanksgiving. But I've never seen anything like my mother's gravy. All of the innards of the turkey in the carcass found in those little paper bags, she would dump into her big stock pot. Now, those innards found in those paper bags, the culinary term is
Gizzards.
giblets.
Giblets.
Giblets, yeah.
That's part of it.
A culinary term used to describe those parts you find in the turkey carcass, such as the heart, the liver, the gizzard, and the neck. Now, my mother would save the heart. That was her delicacy. She would fry that up in bacon grease and eat it with relish. But all the rest of those turkey guts would go into the pot. Now, recipes say that these giblets can be used to create a very tasty gravy or broth.
Yeah.
Now, I know I have also been in the market in the pet food aisle and seen Fancy Feast classic turkey and giblet cat food. But nonetheless, the recipes call for cooking those turkey guts along with chopped celery and chopped onions and chopped carrots. And my mother, bless her heart, she would throw in whole stalks of celery, whole carrots, throw those onions in there, all with the turkey guts, and there they would simmer away. Now, the part that she totally disregarded was when it's done, you strain the broth, discard the vegetables, and I say just throw away the turkey guts, or at least chop them up into small enough pieces that you cannot identify what they once were.
That's right.
But at this point, my mother's gravy was almost done. And there, that turkey neck with long strings of meat floating off of it, kind of bobbed along in that mess with bits of the liver popping to the top of the scum. Everything simmering together, just waiting for my mother's garnishing touch. She would carefully slice a boiled egg and then slip those slices into that whole mess, and those eggs looked like startled eyes staring up at you, just daring you to eat it. I liked turkey. Even if my mother's turkey was really dry, I liked turkey because it was roasted, not fried, or at least not until it became leftovers. And I thank Mrs. Cubison. She released her wonderful dressing mix in the 1950s. It is delicious and foolproof. And of course, no Thanksgiving would be complete without cranberry sauce. And this was dumped right out of the can, quivering, intact and whole on a serving dish, contrasting beautifully with the moldy green salad. Thanksgiving, more than any other holiday, was the time when my family came together. My grandmother and my uncles and my aunt and several cousins would have arrived a couple of days earlier. And there was always a stranger who came to share dinner, and they were strange. I never knew where my mother found these eccentric people, but they were handy to deflect attention away from those moments when Band-Aids would be ripped off and old family wounds would be exposed and examined.
Here.
A favorite family activity was digging up those family skeletons and chewing on the bones. And I swear those bones just got meatier every time they were dug up. Getting everyone seated at the table at the same time never happened. My father had like a built-in censor, and he would be in the back part of the house when my mother would call everyone to the table. And there we would sit, admiring the turkey that the cat had chewed on, waiting for my dad to come back and carve the bird.
Oh, jeez.
But when he came back and sat down, up would pop my Granny Jo, and she'd totter off down the hall to use the bathroom, Miss Jonesy she called it. And then when she came back, my crazy Uncle Hap would get up and take off for the kitchen to make himself another drink. Back he'd come, and up would pop my mother going, "Whoa, she forgot the rolls that had been sitting in the oven for 3 hours and were now rock hard." But when finally everyone was seated, a hasty grace would be said, and everyone would tuck in. My father was always the last one to finish because he told stories and talked all throughout dinner. But when he finally surrendered his plate, then it was time for the judging of the ugly pie contest. Now, my grandmother's pie never won because she made beautiful, tasty pies, but my aunt and my mother, usually my mother's burnt pumpkin ran a close second to my aunt's, "What the hell is that?" And if it was my birthday and somebody remembered, candle would be stuck in that burnt pumpkin pie and everybody would sing an off-key happy birthday to me. Dessert would be served. And then 5 minutes after that, my mother would begin clearing the table, shooting daggers at anyone who lingered, gnashing her teeth at anybody who didn't help or helped. There was no winning that one. Our strange guest would begin looking uncomfortable and start edging towards the door, and so would end another family Thanksgiving dinner. Now, all these years later, my grandmother, my father, my mother, all of my aunts and uncles and many cousins are no longer with us. My birthday falls on Thanksgiving again this year. And if I could make a birthday wish, blow out that candle and have that wish come true, they would all be gathered around my table, enjoying one more turkey dinner with my mother's turkey gut gravy, her green mold with UFOs and burnt pumpkin pie. And, you know, I think Martha Stewart was right. What a perfect Thanksgiving dinner that would be.